Here.
Commissioner Justy,
Here.
Commissioner Sherbin,
Here.
Commissioner Ramcharan,
Here.
Commissioner Woodham, absent, Commissioner Turner, absent, Chair Allen.
Here. Next, let's stand up to salute our flag. Ready, set, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, approve the order of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the order of the agenda? We don't need a roll call for this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. Motion carried. Item number E, are there any blue folder items today?
There are no blue folder items for today.
Thank you. Item F, consent calendar. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar, please?
Motion to approve.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. Motion carried. Item number G, are there any excluded consent calendar items? I don't believe so. Item H, are there any public participation on non-agenda items? I do not see anyone from public. Item,
Yes. Oh, sorry, there are no public comments or e-comments.
Thank you. Item H1, I think that's what the ones you mentioned. Item I, items continued from previous agendas. I1 will be reserves and budget concern. This is the item that Commissioner Jesty has asked us to put on the agenda to discuss. Just to remind you this, we do have a separate item for professional services and for CIP projects. So this one is for reserves and budget concerns that Commissioner Jesty has. And I think you wanted to share some of the letters that you and Mayor wrote back and forth, and also the letter you wrote to the paper. And then I think, I know we've discussed a little bit, and I think I might have a little bit of a solution. All right, you want to take over?
Okay. I think this has been presented and discussed a few times in the past, but with the exception of Commissioner Ramcharan, I think most of the other people were given the documents that we are referring to. One is the letter I wrote to the mayor, and even before I wrote that letter, I distributed through Stephanie an article on the city of Fort Wayne, how it implemented the total quality management and became one of the most efficiently managed cities in the country. And
Can I just ask a question?
yeah.
How did you come up with that particular city to use as a comparison?
I lived in Fort Wayne for 7 years, and this happened just prior to my moving to Fort Wayne. And since then, there have been articles written about the city of Fort Wayne, how it is managed. They got a new mayor who came from a small business background, and he was well versed in the TQM, the total quality management philosophy, and he had gone through extensive training, and he implemented that in his business. And he did the same thing with the city and made the city one of the most efficient, most responsive, and most cost-effective cities in the country. Even today, after 25 years, Fort Wayne is ranked in the top 10 best cities in this country. So that shows that the TQM process has worked, and it has now been embedded in everything the city does long after the mayor was gone. So it's not rocket science. This is something I've spent 30 years in learning and implementing in 3 different organizations, and I've had some outstanding results. So I'm a firm believer of this. And this is why I distributed the article on Fort Wayne, and I also sent it to the mayor. And I pointed out in my letter, the one thing that concerned me the most earlier this year was that when in June, when the city council discussed the budget for the 25-26 year, there was a $3.5 million shortfall, and the city decided to make up for the shortfall by dipping into the pension reserves. To me, that is an irresponsible, unacceptable solution. And this is one thing that really concerned me the most, and that's why I not only brought it up in our meetings, but I also wrote to the mayor about it. And his response was that he completely overlooked or ignored my comments about the city of Fort Wayne and all the other things we talked about. I had mentioned 5 priorities for the city. I said, balance the budget, capital improvement projects need more data, more visibility, homelessness, housing affordability, and emergency reserves. And his response was what I circulated among the commission members.
Can we have that on the screen, please?
I have it up on my screen if you'd like to switch over here. Just let me know which item you'd like to have up here, Commissioner Yessi. Right now I have the letter.
It's a pretty long-winded letter. I'll just summarize it if you don't mind. I'll summarize his response. And I mentioned in my letter, I pointed out these 5 things in addition to taking a look at the TQM process as implemented by Fort Wayne, that's the role model that's in front of us, so we should do something about it. He responded on July 22nd, and he only had a few items. He said, balance the budget. He said, I urge the council not to spend the discretionary funds, but they did not listen. So he is blaming the city council. And then he says, hopefully it'll have a short-term impact. On the capital improvement projects, he said, they are confusing. Some are funded by grants, some are out of our budget, some are deferred projects. I've recommended some improvements, but so far no changes. So again, he's blaming the administration. Then homelessness, said I have the same concern. Stephanie has agreed to work with Joy to build more tracking into the reporting systems, which I think is happening now. Housing affordability, he said, totally agree with you. Emergency reserves, again, he said, if the commission agrees we should increase our reserves, has it sent much advice to the council? I've never seen it. It's something we may be able to tackle at a later date. So that also, he claimed, was not something he could do. Now, this is really a problem, in my opinion, because the mayor is considered the CEO of the city administration, city, if it is considered as a corporation.
Just a quick question, if I can interrupt you for just a second. The mayor said he never saw the letter that the council sent to the, the letter that our commission sent to the council with respect to the reserves?
That was
Because I
in
know that-
July, so it's
Okay.
possible.
So no, he did say that because it's in his email right here. However, I did follow up because we did send that letter to him and to the council. So I just verified that it's in my sent email because, you never know. And he says, thank you, and provided it to the council. So, and I did resend it to him following this discussion just to make sure that he had it. He did ask me some follow-up questions on our reserve, so I think he is thinking about it.
Yep, thank you so much, and pardon me.
So this is where we stand. I think the budget deficit and just trying to make up for it by dipping into pension reserves, to me, is really not a good way to do it. It sets up a very bad precedent, and once you open the door for this kind of a solution, it's going to get worse. This is what we have seen at the federal level and even the state level. Is something that should be of great concern to us, and we should never, ever simply put a rubber stamp on the entire budget, even with this kind of a temporary fix to the budget deficit. Something we need to go on record as having opposed it and not in favor of it. If we don't do that, then we are not doing our job. That's my personal opinion. So, as far as the capital improvement projects, this has been going on for almost 2 years. And I remember about 6 months ago, we spent an hour and a half to discuss how much the city attorney should be paid. And then I think the same meeting or meeting after that, we spent about a minute and a half to approve the capital improvement project plan. And Mike, if I remember, he had one slide and he showed only 10 projects. I don't know how he picked, probably at random. And he said, this is what we're going to work on. I don't even remember if they had any numbers about how much each project was going to cost. And I don't know how they were prioritized. So there were a lot of issues. And this is something that you really need to spend a lot more time on, because we spend, right now we have $95 million allocated for the next 5 years. And every year we are spending between 18 and $20 million on capital improvement projects. And something after almost 2 years, we finally got some more details other than what the total cost at the end of the project was, because we didn't know where the project began and how much was anticipated or projected for that project and where we ended up with. So finally, we got some numbers thanks to Stephanie. And these are very interesting figures. Initial appropriated amount that the council approved was just under $10 million. $9,978,668. Subsequent appropriations for the same projects were $46,913,118. So 470% of what was initially appropriated. 400%, 470%. So the total appropriations were $56,891,786. Total project spending was $33,591,000, which was more than 300% of what the initial appropriation was. So the question was, where did this money come from? Was it approved by the city council? If not, how did the project grow from all the projects grow from almost $10 million to $47 million.
I might just add perhaps an observation. I've had a major part of my career has been in cost accounting, project development. I was assistant controller at Columbia Pictures, filmed entertainment division. I've worked for biotech firms. So where we start with an experiment and we have to scale it up to commercial production. So I've been involved with project development, and I'm quite familiar with it. Let me just say, here's one of the dynamics that I'm familiar with. You start with an idea for a project, and you identify the development stage of the project, which usually incorporates getting the details together, getting some better estimates, getting a better idea what the project is. Maybe that ends up being 1 or 2% of the overall project cost. So at that point, that project gets a project number, it gets a development amount of money that people are working with. And then as the project develops, you could think of, maybe most of you are familiar with motion picture type stuff. You start off with a treatment, you take an option on a script, you decide to go forward, maybe you get your actors involved or identified, then you start looking for locations, so that the cost of that project changes as the more elements are introduced. Then at some point in time, you get your financing, you go ahead and you say that you identify the project to release the project. At that point in time, as the project develops, someone might say, instead of shooting it in Hawaii, let's go to Tahiti. Oh, that would be a much better ending project. So the outcome is actually forecast to be a better outcome. The project evolves, kind of is the point. So I think as these not all capital projects probably work this way, but as the project moves along, its dynamic gets changed. It comes back to the council. From my understanding, the council says, well, do we want to increase this project scope by doing this? The project is approved. The next step takes place. The money's approved and allocated. So it's important when you're doing any kind of a cost analysis to identify what your final project is before you look for the variance between the final project budget and the final cost. And then even when you develop that variance between those two things, you break that down. Is the variance because of an increase in labor costs, material? Is it because we used more material, or was the material more expensive? Was the more labor used? And so consequently, there's a lot of things that happen in the course of that execution of the project. And probably one of the most important things is subsequently, at the end of the project, to look back at it and say, let's do the root cause, how did we get to where we ended up? So,
thank you. And I'm very familiar with the process because I've done this for 30 years too. So it's nothing new.
Nothing new.
All I'm saying, I understand all these things. All I'm saying is, where is the visibility? Do we have a breakdown of how much money was spent and how it grew to that level? And was it all approved by the city council, or we found some way to keep going? That's all I'm asking for, more visibility, more detail.
And I think that's excellent because, as I say, in the assessment of a project, that's the root cause for where the variance is one of the most important.
And we don't see that. We haven't seen it in the past. So if we make that a habit of looking at the data and analyzing it, and then trying to figure out if it all makes sense, that's all I'm saying. I'm not pointing finger at anyone or anything in particular because I don't know where the money was spent.
Yes, it makes sense what you are asking. And
Yeah, exactly.
so we have an item on the CIP, I think it's J2. And there are some attachments that Jesse had sent, so we can go through those attachments maybe.
Stephanie told me just before we started that she has some new information that she will be presenting. So let's wait till we see what she has.
So we'll discuss more on item J2.
Yeah.
Were you going to go through all of these, or are you finished? Because I do have a suggestion for the budget.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So what I would like to do, for the budget section where they did dip into the reserve, the council didn't know about it until the last minute. So that's why I know I need to blame them, because ultimately they're responsible for staff, but they didn't know. It was a surprise to them, as it was a surprise to us. So for that reason, and I think one thing that I see is that finance department doesn't really present to council on quarterly basis. Neither is the treasurer's office. They only present to our commission, and the truth is we're just volunteers and we don't have any authority. They throw at us rules whenever they want. And we're really nobody. So for that purpose, this is what I'd like to make a motion for. To send a letter on behalf of the commission to the mayor and city council recommending that the finance department begin providing quarterly budget updates directly to the council in addition to the commission. The intent of the letter is to promote greater fiscal transparency, since people follow council meetings and they attend council meetings, they watch council meetings, ensure earlier identification of budgetary issues, and strengthen accountability among staff, council, and commission. The letter will outline the benefits of quarterly reporting, suggest that the presentation should include, and emphasize the process will help clarify roles and responsibilities in future budget discussions. And I can also attach to that letter the reserve letter that we had sent to them. So basically what I want to do is, I don't think we're being taken seriously, right? Because we're volunteers, understandably. Finance department should be presenting directly to council on quarterly basis, so the council learns, because they don't know. They're not finance
Stephanie, you guys
people.
are not presenting on a quarterly basis?
We don't present to council. From my understanding, I've been here 2 years. This is just not something the city has historically done.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's why our council doesn't know. I mean, in a way, I don't blame them, because they just don't know. They don't get educated. They don't ask questions. They don't know what, I've never seen a city council.
How we're tracking to budget, or there's no mid-year plan or review?
Other than what Mike presents for the strategic meeting.
So actually, we do present to council for our year-end financial reporting for carryover. We present to budget for mid-year, and we present to council for budget. So the reports that we do not present to council are the quarterly ones, like we'll present to you tonight.
Gotcha.
So I'd like council to get to learn finances. That way they'll get ahead of what's coming, so that we're being proactive. They don't just get a surprise, oh, you're going to have to dip into the reserves. The entire year they had planned how they were going to spend the money, and all of a sudden somebody tells them, oh, no, you can't.
Yeah,
well,
they don't have visibility. Got it.
I understand. And I also understand they're ultimately responsible, so let's make them responsible, because if something happens and someone sues the city because, they have to cut now from the police department or fire department, I want to make sure they're not going to point a finger at us. We are pointing the finger at them. They're ultimately responsible, and they need to learn, and they need to be proactive. I don't know how else I can educate them.
What you say makes sense, except this goes back to June. On June 26th, the Easy Reader had a really good article on what the city council discussed in their monthly meeting. And I think it'll be worth reading that article, because in that article it says the city manager presented the overall budget, and he did bring up the topic of budget deficit. And then one of the council members, actually she represents my District 3, Paige, she raised a lot of issues that she was not comfortable with. And she said, in view of the deficit, we need to either delay or cancel some of these projects. For example, she talked about
Trees.
$306,000 for trimming. She also called to reject new radios in the coming new fire department, 95,000, and to hold off on hiring new positions. These are some, and then she goes on to bring up a lot of other things. So this was discussed in the city council meeting in June. They talked about the deficit. They talked about some of the issues that could be deferred or canceled, like the new hires, in order to balance the budget. And in the end, even Paige, she fell in line with the rest of the members, and they voted unanimously to approve the budget.
Because they were making her look like she didn't want to make the city better. She didn't want to make the city prettier or healthier. So I understand what you mean, but we can't fire council. We can't, recalls don't work. There's nothing, we can't force them.
No, but to your comment that it was a surprise and they couldn't do anything, I think this article shows that they had the discussion. They could have trimmed some expenses and some projects in order to try to balance the budget as much as possible. They didn't do it.
I guess my question is what the relationship is between the commission and the city council, and if they make decisions based on what they feel are appropriate assumptions, I don't know how that is supposed, I don't know what impact we could have other than, again, preparing a letter, preparing a recommendation. It's up to those city councilmen to be making the decisions on the final decision on running the city, I think. So, you know, as I say, I'm kind of searching for a method.
We got two different things. One is what the commission's responsibility is and what our authority is. All I said in the beginning was to express our disapproval of the way the budget is prepared and the way the deficit is financed. That is something we should not endorse and approve. That's all I'm saying.
So let's write another letter. And then what I also would like to suggest is that so that it doesn't get lost in their emails, because they receive so many emails. And then we can go to one of the public meetings and we can take that 3 minutes and read that letter. That way there's a very visible, you know, we're communicating the same thing in two ways. We're getting there. That's all we can do. There isn't anything else, you know, that I can.
Yeah.
I think in addition to sending a letter, we also read the letter to them at the public meeting where people are watching, people are attending.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, when the council member raises objections and still votes in favor of the budget and the way the deficit is financed, she owns it. And we, as commissioners, we need to go on record that financing the budget deficit by dipping into pension reserves is not something we can endorse or approve. That's all I'm saying.
I think that's a fine idea, and I think separating it out so that if any councilman, or pardon me, commissioner, feels personally strongly about something, that they as an individual can go to the city council meeting and express their concern. But I don't think we can do that in any formal sense.
We can. We can ask to have us on the agenda, and we can actually make an item of it.
And for the city council?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
we can ask to get on the agenda. I mean, but to me, I think it would be just more efficient if we did the 3-minute public.
individual comment section. Yeah.
But we don't have to. We can read the letter on behalf of a commission. but we can also do an individual. But that 3 minutes is ours. We can do whatever we want to do with that. We can, I was thinking to read the letter on behalf of the commission. But if it
Add
doesn't
some
work.
weight to it.
Huh?
To add some weight to it. We need to go on record, that's all. How we do it
Yes.
is something we can discuss, but we need to go on record that we do not endorse
Yes,
or approve.
and I think that will put us on record. It will be in public meeting. It will be, it will be in their minutes, not in our minutes, because nobody cares about our minutes. We're volunteers. Nobody watches us, nobody attends. Fun attendee house, thank you. Jim.
Yeah, so I think that's a great plan. If I heard you properly, so you would write 2 letters, one to ask that they get a quarterly budgetary update, and then the second letter would be how they finance the budget deficit. Right? Is that the two themes that you want to pick on?
I don't know about the second one, how they would finance the
or rather
budget deficit.
expressing disapproval about drawing on the reserves to finance the deficit is sort of what the theme is I'm picking up.
I think we already wrote them a letter on that. They already have a letter on that.
So then what would the second letter be?
So the letter I was at, there was no second letter. I only
So just
got
one,
one letter.
just
One
one,
letter asking, because, so the one letter will ask that the finance department directly, quarterly basis, give
update.
them updates.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
But I think Commissioner Justy, to your point, is also saying he would like to reiterate his concerns about deficit financing of our budget.
And we can add it in that same
Okay.
letter. We can all
Gotcha.
include. So would you like to work with me to put that letter together?
So I'll be happy.
So one nice letter, and then when we read it to them during public comment, I can read part of it, and then you can read part of it, however long we need, we can use the time. There are ways to communicate to them. Or if we really think we need to get on their agenda and make this a big topic, we can also do that. But at this point, I think just going on.
As long as we
Public.
go on record, I think that's
Okay.
what is needed.
And just a dumb question, did they, on the deficit, do we know if it's a shortfall in revenue or is it expenditures that went beyond what they had in the budget? Is that something that we know the answer to?
I can give you our estimation of it. I think we see some additional room for revenues to grow, so they're a little bit
Stephanie,
below.
I'm so sorry, can I interrupt? So,
Sure.
So the question, I want to make sure that before we move on to current, back when we
Yes.
dipped into the reserves,
Yes,
was
that's what-
that because of the revenue or expenses?
That's what I understood the question to be. So yeah, what the specific item driving that is our one large lump sum pension payment. Our payment to CalPERS, which is $4.2 million this year, which we were not able to completely cover with ongoing revenues. So, obviously that's not the city's only expense, right? If we had fewer other expenses, we would have potentially been able to accommodate that one-time expense. Additionally, if we anticipated more revenues, we would have been potentially able to cover that whole expense. But that is the specific item that was really, we're unable to cover with ongoing revenues, which is why we pulled from the pension reserves, which again, the council set aside specifically for that purpose, understanding there were going to be times when we'd have these large lump sum payments.
I think maybe that gives us a good opportunity then to lock into something, to say that starting with the must-do kinds of expenses like the pension payment, it's fine. That becomes a fixed cost that we have to cover. And the other, I'm sorry?
The unfortunate part is it's impossible to predict.
Oh, yes, but again, some of the other items, perhaps like the firing range in District 3, $3 million deposit, not knowing what the outcome is that they decided to go forward with, that might be one of the alternatives that they might defer let's say, until the revenue stream is confirmed.
Just
But I mean, making that type of suggestion, dealing with the structuring of the costs from the must-dos to the would like to do, and but not run into the not run into the deficit because you're selecting a lot of things that are alternatives. I mean, that are alternate.
Well, just to follow up on that, was the CalPERS payment unexpected? So it was no way to forecast that this was going to come up?
Or in excess of what we had originally anticipated?
So that's a great question. We did know about that payment. So because CalPERS, because of the way they provide us the information, we know a year in advance.
Unit, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
what that payment's going to be. So you're correct. We did have a year to, we knew that payment was coming, and we had to determine how we're going to spend it. I think that's where, we're also forecasting, at the time we prepared the budget, forecasting how the current fiscal year would end. And what we saw looking at that is we weren't expecting the type of savings that we've seen the last few years, which is a combination of revenue and spending. So the short answer is yes, we had some time to prepare for it. I mean, a year isn't, super long time. However, we did know that it was coming, right? And I think forgetting which commissioner's point this was a moment ago, that expense is not possible to predict many years in the future. However, it is going to be a fixed expense for the foreseeable future unless we refinance our pension debt again. So something that the city manager talked about in his budget message is, again, that we see this year kind of as a bridge year. What we cautiously anticipate is that we'll be able to, see a bit of revenue growth that will help us to cover that amount for the current fiscal year. But again, there are a lot of uncertainties, as I'm sure everyone here is aware. So what he said is, we're looking at all these options, and, we'll do our best to anticipate costs to the extent that we can.
So just to follow up on that then, if I got it, so you guys, I guess you anticipated 1 year prior that the expense was coming, and then the idea was that you would draw on the reserves to finance that payment was the plan?
It was always an option. I mean, I think that's obviously not our first choice. We would have loved to be able to keep those reserves intact, but again, that's the specific purpose that the council dedicated those funds for. So while it's obviously not the optimal choice, the city manager determined that was an appropriate use for those funds.
But in the original budget, it was intended that the CalPERS payment was going to come from revenues, not from the reserve. But
in the original budget, in the budget as proposed for 25-26, we always assumed it was going to come from the CalPERS reserve.
Okay, got it.
I'm just saying, when we initially got the, information from CalPERS a year prior, we thought that was an option, and we're hoping to potentially see some additional revenue in the year that would have, yeah.
So the payment, you said that it was always intended that it came from the reserve?
It was not always intended. That was always a possibility. So I think when we were thinking about how to deal with this large payment that we learned about.
Well, eventually that's.
Yes.
Okay.
So we considered that an option.
So
it's
when
not the
did
first
you
choice.
know that you were going to pull it from the CalPERS reserve?
That was a decision the city manager came to during our budget development.
So from my understanding, we didn't know. That was a complete surprise to us. We found out from the council meetings.
Okay.
So the whole point is that we are able to forecast and learn that now we have to pull from those funds at least a year ahead, not the month of. So that's why, to me, I know ultimately it's council's responsibility, but the information when it was being provided to them, they didn't have much time to think. And they had promises to their constituents. Those are, some of the topics that you are mentioning. Those were the reasons that they were elected.
Those are the hard decisions that we're happy to, that they assume the responsibility for. But
Yes.
in watching that process, they come up with plans for meeting the revenue, or pardon me, keeping the expenses and revenue in line, and they make a decision if they decide to spend more than the revenue provides. And they go project by project, and the councilmen are sitting there coming up with their proposals, and they're switching back and forth, and the process then ends with saying, you can have this project for your area, you can have this one for your area, and we'll borrow the money from the contingency fund and to solve the problem, versus saying, we don't have that money to spend, so we're all going to have to take a different view about what we can provide to the constituents of the city.
Yes, I agree with you, but also a lot of them were brand new. They were on council for a couple of months, maybe. They're not used to, this was a surprise to them. They were not prepared for it. I'm not agreeing that what they did is correct, but I'm justifying that it was a surprise to them, especially when you just got elected and there's so much information thrown at you. I mean, it must be so overwhelming to be in their position. So I want to say I understand.
Well, remember, one of the new council people came from the commission here this last cycle, so we assume that Councilman Castle was pretty well endowed with.
So I guess with the quarterly, if we write the letter and the quarterly updates, that will at least inform the council. At least they'll have the option to know, they'll know, when there's a big expense, and they can have a conversation about the right way to sort of deal with that.
They'll have more time. Yeah. They'll digest better. They'll be able to have more communication, ask questions, learn. I think most important is that they learn, and they just they're just people. They're not MBAs.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah.
Can we make a motion, or can we second the motion and move on with this topic? Or?
I second the motion. Is that the right way to phrase it? I second the motion. I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, before, I'm so sorry, before the motion, do we have any public comments? No public comments? Do we have any online comments?
We do not have any e-comments or attendees on Zoom.
Thank you. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, and who wants to work with me? Would you like just to work with me? Okay. And I'll get to it right away because I'm free.
Could I ask that we clarify what it is exactly that we're preparing to do?
Oh, I'll read again.
Restate the motion.
So on behalf of the commission, we'll send a letter, and we'll also read the letter at a public comment, depending how long the letter is. I'm hoping it'll be just 3 minutes, so one person can do it. And if it's up, we'll work with Commissioner Jesty, however he thinks would be also, at this point, we're trusting these two people. That we're recommending Finance Department, in addition to providing quarterly budget updates to the commission, they also provide it to the council. And in that letter, and this will promote greater fiscal transparency, since the public will be able to see it and hear it and watch it, since it's done during council meetings. It will ensure earlier identification of budgetary issues. The letter will outline the benefits of quarterly reporting and suggest what the presentation should include. So I'll have points. What else? The main points, how it should track, what it should compare to, that it needs to be analyzed. And hopefully the council will have opportunities to learn and ask questions.
Good, and will we all have a chance to review that and comment on it before it actually gets sent to the council?
I can, anybody wants to, I don't want to send it to people and then I don't get anything back for weeks and then it will delay.
Well, no, I mean that we can identify people that are going to constructively put it together.
1, 2, 3.
My question is that once that takes place, since it's representing the commission's
We can do that.
vision, I think the rest of the commission ought to be able to see the letter before it actually
Okay, I think that
formally
makes
goes.
sense.
We
How
can,
it's
we can
circulated
do
and-
that, but before we did do that, it was like the last letter that we worked, it was just me and Commissioner Moran, and then we worked together and I sent it on behalf because that's what we agreed, but if you don't want to do it that way, you want to do it the long way, we can do
In the
that.
spirit of Commissioner Jesse's comments, this is a continuous improvement process that we're all involved in. So anything we can do to make things better, I suggest.
So I will send it to Stephanie and Stephanie will distribute to the rest of the commission, and I'm going to give deadline if I do not hear from you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
There's a
fair.
24
That's
hours
totally
deadline.
fair.
If people don't respond, then it's a fait accompli.
That's totally fair.
Yeah, there'll
Thing
be
I
a
would like
deadline on it.
to add is the city of Fort Wayne, when they implemented the TQM process, in 3 years, it resulted in savings of just about $3 million. So that is very significant. And this was all done by the administration, not by the city council. They were not involved. The mayor acting as the CEO of the organization, he pushed through the changes and trained the people and made sure that the data was collected, analyzed, and action was taken to simplify and cost reduce anything that was considered inefficient, unproductive, and waste. So that resulted in all savings. So if we had done that here, we would not be seeing the deficit and then try to figure out. The thing that bothers me the most is that was 25 years ago. The last 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, technology has made some tremendous strides. Now, Stephanie and our IT director, they're using the AI to make some fancy presentations. AI can also be used for simplifying and streamlining your internal processes.
And I think that's a separate item, and I think we've talked about maybe bringing up as well, like talking to our technology department and all that, but we may want to limit the scope of what we're trying to achieve in the next board meeting on that letter to the 2 areas that we've discussed. But you're absolutely right.
The city needs to take into consideration. We can recommend, as I did with Mayor Light back in July, but he completely did discussion on the TQM and what the city of Fort Wayne did. So obviously he is not interested, and he doesn't show any desire to implement something like this, which is really sad, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so I'm not going to read everything all over again, and we already had a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. Motion carried. All right. Item number J2. This is the one that Jesse, I think, sent a spreadsheet. Can we have that on the screen, please? And
Are we doing J1 or no?
oh, I forgot J1. Oh, you're right. I skipped J1.
Yeah, no, we were just on I1.
Because I
so-
was, okay, my apologies. We'll go to J1, which is a presentation from staff.
Okay. Ready? Okay. Good evening again, commission members. I'm here to present our Q1 fiscal year 25-26 financial reporting. This is reverting back to the format that we have implemented for the past about 2 years, I think since I started. And what we are doing is comparing Q1 of this year to Q1 of the prior year, so we can properly assess trends. I also included FY 23-24 on here because we had that data as well. So I thought it was interesting to put another year on here because it's still readable. So we'll start out with our general fund revenues. As you can see, we have the budget, actuals, and percent received. So at a high level, we're tracking about the same as last year, the prior 2 years. I can point out a couple items, and I'll go through it in the following slides. The most important item for us here is our property tax, which is coming in at the same rate, about the same. It's slightly higher. You can't tell with the rounding here. It's a little bit higher than our prior year. We also had a meeting recently with our property tax consultant, who has confirmed their revenue estimates for our current fiscal year corresponding to our budget, which is great news for us. Sales tax is a bit higher. Our property transfer tax, which is our the tax increment the city receives with property sales, coming in a little higher than last year. Overall, that's doing a little better than we anticipated, so that's good news. Sales tax is a bit higher, and again, we've met with our consultant who has confirmed so far yes, go ahead.
I'm so sorry for being slow. I didn't quite see when you said the sales tax. What are you referring to as it being higher than the previous year? Which number are you looking at?
Oh, you are right. It must be slightly higher in my.
It's just a rounding then.
Yeah, it's just rounding. It's just rounding.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I'm looking at it at the percentage and I think my next slide may have the actual number.
Okay.
So it may not be. So it's a very, very good observation.
No, I'm getting old. I don't see things
I usually
as
do
well.
my subtraction from the whole numbers. But overall, I won't go through these line by line. We're about on track with the prior year.
So you're comparing on this slide, you're comparing, we'll use sales tax as an example. When you say it's higher, which column you're comparing?
So
Green to blue?
The green to the blue, which is our 25-26 actuals compared to our 24-25 actuals. What Commissioner Ramcharan just pointed out to me is that in the rounding, they are exactly the same.
Okay.
So that was, and I think the difference is, is rounding because, yes.
So it's not as significant?
It is not as significant. Okay. No, it is not as significant. The only item here that's, somewhat significantly above last year in terms of percentage received is our property transfer tax, as I said. So basically, we are on track with prior year. We are broadly on track with the budget. Our TOT is slightly below the percent received last year. This does include, I think, 4 missing payments, which we have just received. So when we include those, we'll be about on track. But again, this is the major item that we're going to follow closely as we go through the year. Yeah.
And I guess one more thing, Stephanie. So in the last couple of years, we've had a fair bit of inflation. But then if you look at total taxes, 23-24, it's 5.5 million, and then in 25-26, it's coming in at 5.7. So it's roughly the same, despite the fact that the revenue base has probably been inflated a little bit.
So that is a great observation, and almost all of our major tax sources that you see here have remained flat or largely flat over the past few years. Yeah. The only area where we've seen, relatively strong positive growth is our property tax.
Yeah, even the sales taxes are relatively flat despite the 3% and change going up on inflation.
Exactly, and this is consistent with performance kind of statewide at least. Yeah. There are nationwide trends in this area. For our city, the kind of ongoing challenges with the South Bay Social District or the Old Galleria spot have been a little bit of a challenge for the city's kind of sales growth, sales tax growth opportunity. But that's, yes, that's a very accurate observation.
October was the first month since, I think, COVID that we finally saw in, with the recent data, that sales went, they increased a little bit. So, yeah, and this does not include October.
I see.
It's just the July, August, September.
I see.
If you look at the total citywide revenues, I think you got the lowest figure for 25-26 is 8%. For 24-25 it was 9%, and 23-24 it was 13%.
Yes.
So
I can talk you through, I can talk you through what's contributing to that. So moving on to the next categories, again, we're about even, apart from our charges for services. So these are like our fees, like our recreation fees, we have parking fees. The reason for this, I'm drilling down to it, but we do have some unposted revenues through September. I think as I've mentioned to this commission, we have a few staffing challenges in our department, which means we are catching up on this fiscal year after a late audit. So I believe that makes up the difference here. And of course, we'll continue to monitor it moving forward. You'll see our overhead and our transfers in. Overhead, we just haven't actually charged overhead. Overhead is the revenue that we charge ourselves. So we're going to get 100% of it because we charge ourselves. We just include it to, add up to the total number. But I think if you look through, so our taxes total, we're at 7% in all the years shown here. You see our non-tax total, we are down about 3% from the prior year. And again, the big difference there is in the charges for service, which I expect will make up when we've finished posting all of our revenue, because the others are on pace. And then in the remaining items, we've grouped our special revenue funds, capital improvement funds, enterprise funds, and our other funds here. These are a bit more, the revenue is not as consistent or, as suitable to comparing for trends year over year, just because they tend to include kind of larger one-time projects. The one exception to that is our enterprise funds. This is our transit fund, harbor tidelands, harbor uplands, and sewer. These funds are run somewhat like a business. We can use those revenues only for those purposes. And you'll see there, we are also down slightly from our prior year at this point. So I've been looking into this discrepancy. We are missing several payments here in our tidelands and uplands lease revenue. And so once we receive all of this, we'll continue to monitor it. But that's another area where there is a slight decrease. And then our special revenue funds, again, these are individual funds set aside for separate purposes. The largest of our special revenue funds is our intergovernmental grants fund. So revenue in this large category often reflects just the timing of our grants reimbursements. So, Commissioner Yossi, you're 100% correct that overall we're slightly below our prior year at this point. I believe looking into this is mostly due to timing and then the discrepancies in our other funds. But it's something we'll continue to look at.
Well, just to follow up on that, so at the bottom line, the total revenues, it's the budget for 2025-2026 is $233 million. If you divide it by 1.03, which is the inflation rate, in real terms, it's about 226 million, which puts it at well below what it was last year. And if you use the previous year as the base year, the projection is well below what it was in real terms from last year. So I guess my question is that a conscious choice? to project the revenue in real terms to be much less than it was last year, or that was just not something that people were thinking about?
So the way that we generally project the revenue, I mean, for the general fund, we look at, we look at we look at our expert opinions, we look at prior year performance, and any, contributing factors, and it's kind of our best estimate. A bit similar for some of our other charges. For a lot of the other funds, it really depends on the projects that we fund in that year and our anticipated reimbursements. So I guess to answer your question, it's not a conscious choice. I'll also just note that the budgets, if you look, for example, at our debt service funds, which you'll see in the 25-26 budget is 16.6 compared to 30.4. Some of these also depend on where the city budgets these expenses year over year. And it may also depend. So if you look at the enterprise funds, for example, it's 34 million the prior year, 31.8 this year. Some of those are just reflect one-time costs that the city doesn't anticipate ongoing. So we really budget based on operations and, what we anticipate the revenues to be.
Got it. Thank you.
To summarize this page, the revenues for Q1, they're not significantly lower, but they're a tiny bit lower than what I would expect.
Yeah. I would say they're within kind of on pace with what we've projected for budget. And again, we'll continue to monitor them closely. This is exactly the same thing we just talked about, so I may just skip these slides. I had got through this is exactly what I said, so I may just skip these. I'll just point out I think I just said this actually, our enterprise funds, we'll look at these closely. We're missing a few payments and we'll continue to follow up on those items. These are just slides showing the exact same thing in kind of a different format, just showing percentage received. And I just used the prior 2 years here. This just shows in a graphical format. And then this is the same thing, but broken down by fund type. And again, usually you may end up seeing kind of a greater discrepancy year over year for the other funds, just based on the type of revenues that we have here. So moving on to expenditures, again, we are for the general fund, we are almost exactly on percentage terms in line with the prior year. The total amount we've spent is higher, which we would have anticipated based on largely personnel increases. If you will, you can compare kind of year over year in budget. Trying to think if there's anything else outstanding I should point out here. And again, you can kind of look at the discrepancies in the budget between 24-25 and 25-26. As Commissioner Ramcharan pointed out, there are some decreases, and this largely just reflects the projects that we include in each of these funds, which will differ from year to year. I'll also note that this doesn't include carryover. So once we do our carryover, that's to take our unspent but programmed capital and grant funds from the prior year and move it into the next year. So that will increase the budget. So these are just our new appropriations for 25-26. And again, for our personnel costs, I think this is something I brought up over the reports in 24-25, and we'll continue to look at. Council has approved MOU increases, several of these in the last 2 to 3 years, and I think this year is when we'll kind of start to see the full impact of all of those. So we'll, again, continue to monitor closely and just make sure we're tracking with budget.
So just to ask you a
Sure.
question, I'm not an expert on this at all. So just to get your perspective, so personnel expenses are now, am I seeing it properly? The 49.98, that's the dollar amount that's being spent on personnel. Okay, I'm sorry, I misinterpreted that to be something else. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. So if you add personnel and fringe, those would be our total personnel costs, again, just for the general fund.
Got
They're
it,
broken
got
out
it.
there. Yeah. So again, this kind of just describes.
If I could beg
Oh,
you,
yeah,
if
of
you could
course.
just go back
Yeah,
one more
please.
slide, just to take one more quick look at it. So, yeah, your personnel costs in real terms is also flat, right? It's not growing. So there's no. I mean, my quick take on this is that it doesn't seem to indicate that there's a lot of extraordinary spending that's happening. As in, it doesn't seem to be that the budget is growing fast and it's in an uncontrolled state. It seems to be relatively constant.
So I would agree with you. I think, in my position, in my, evenings of anxiety about the future of city finances, what I would love to see is a projection where I can fully take into account the, kind of, especially the personnel cost increases that have occurred over the past few years, and look at that average growth with our revenues, where we expect our revenues to go, to give me a bit more peace of mind, because I think the past few years there's been some up and down. So again, I think you're correct, and I think this Redondo Beach is very fortunate that does not appear to be spiraling out of control. And we will continue to watch it.
Well, I guess it might be useful as well to benchmark it to towns of similar sizes, and just to see on a per capita basis how much do we spend on personnel and fringe, just to make sure that we don't fall behind or that we don't go way too far ahead as well.
And I think to your point, what the city has been doing in the past few years is catching up a little bit to some of our neighboring cities. The adjustments that I mentioned are related to salary studies. So, but yeah, that's a great point.
For personnel, the forecast includes the vacancies here, right? Or is it percentage of vacancies?
It's a percentage of vacancies, yes. Okay. It's a percentage of vacancies.
So in government, the budget, it's compared to private sector, it's super boring and easy, because it's basically you look what happened last year and then you repeat, nothing that much changes, right? Yeah. I mean, they have 300 employees. They're not going to add any more. We already have 300. So that's why it's constant, because it's just same old. Everything is the same way.
I mean, we do include projections for, potential increases that will take place in the next year, salary increases, merit increases. We adjust the rates for our new CalPERS rates, health insurance, all those other items.
But it's not like you might not get a project and you have to lay off some staff because you didn't get the project, or you got a new project. Now you have to figure out who's going to do that. So there's none of that here. Yeah. It's just, okay, do they get raises? And the raises are all in MOUs.
This basically restates what we just looked at. We don't need to spend time on it. The only other thing I said here is that our contracts and services spending is slightly behind prior year. And again, this is one of the areas where our spending depends a little bit on the projects, because obviously we budget for certain contracts we expect to spend throughout the year, and those can differ from year to year. Other spending, again, in other funds, it's about the same. We did have increases in the budgets and spending for our internal service funds. Again, a lot of this is project timing. In our self-insurance fund, for example, we pay the city's premiums at the start of the year, so we'll show a large percent of the budget used at the start of the year. And in our IT fund and vehicle replacement fund, we don't, we just budget for 1 year of costs, and a large portion of that will be in the carryover. So it looks like a large percentage of the budget is spent now, but the total budget will come with our carryover.
And just
item.
to ask you as well, is healthcare costs something that you think about or we should think about in some way? Because that could be changing at some point, and is that?
Yes, so the city has a contract with CalPERS for, to provide medical benefits.
Okay.
Those costs have increased substantially over the past 2 years. It, depends on the plan, but I think the most expensive plan increased by almost 30% last year.
I see.
So again, I have this in our forecast, the percent increase over the past several years, but yes, definitely something we look at.
And do you look at the demographics of the employees in the city to try to predict how the changing healthcare costs and pension costs could affect the city compared to others?
So we don't necessarily get into that level of detail. Our actuarial report from CalPERS and our actuarial report for the city's long-term medical benefits, which are other post-employment benefits, get very far into that detail. So, they have all their assumptions about mortality and longevity, all these things. So those are in their reports, and that affects what the city contributes for those items. But for our city, no, we don't get into that level of detail. So we essentially budget based on our premiums and based on what the city provides employees. And then moving forward, we can look at projections,
So I guess the motivation for the question is going back to the deficit and the fact that you had the one-time payment that was unexpected. And so I was wondering if people look at the demographics of the city employees, could they then predict with more certainty in the next 5 years we're going to have 20% of people be 65 or 66 and costs are going to change? So could you begin to predict more carefully or precisely when there'll be a shift in costs that's coming? Is that not possible or not worthwhile?
It might be, something we could look into. I'm just not sure that's where the, large unexpected majority of our costs will come from. I think honestly that's from our, annual one-time large bill from CalPERS.
Got it.
And again, that's exactly what CalPERS is looking at. And we actually project some longer-term benefit for the city in that each year more and more city employees are in our PEPRA, or our third-tier retirement plan, which is much less expensive for the city. The employee contributes more and the benefits are lower. So to the extent that that impacts our long-term costs, that's beneficial for the city in terms of our demographics. And again, we just have the same kind of comparative bar charts on this side. We had a very low budget for capital outlay, and I think we spent, I think it was $20,000. We spent $40,000. And that's what's that 104% there. But again, this shows we're roughly consistent with prior years with our equipment and contracts, including some one-time purchases that tend to distort it slightly. And then again, this is the same except for our other funds. And you can see here, so we also include our capital improvement funds where we budget for and spend our capital improvement projects. And what this would show us is just that we are spending more of our capital funds in our first quarter compared to the prior year, which if you are a resident or city council, you probably appreciate because we're getting projects done. We've also added the spending by department. I included all funds for this just to give kind of a better picture. It is actually very interesting to look at all funds because some numbers kind of immediately jump out at you. I did include some notes for these to explain this. And I'll also just note, these are all our departments. So it does not include capital, and it doesn't include our non-departmental expenses, which are, they're like our transfers, which include our bond payments, because we budget for those outside of the department budgets. So this reflects only city operations. And I just noted a few items on here. Human resources, because it includes the self-insurance fund, does include those upfront insurance payments, which is why their number looks so high for percent spent at the moment. My department looks very high for the moment because we've included the payments that we make to our hotel properties that we have our tax agreement with. And that amount is offset by revenue. We also have a couple departments with very low spending. Our city treasurer's office, again, it's a small office. It's a 2-person office. They have 1 vacancy, and most of their spending is later in the year. And then our waterfront economic development department, a lot of that, because it includes the harbor, our internal service charges, which we haven't posted at this point.
So just to ask you a question on the police and fire.
Sure.
Is the spending or is the budget that we have for police and fire, is that comparable to the other towns in terms of the percent
That's a good
of budget?
question, and I have not benchmarked that, and I should do that. Okay. I would expect that it's comparable.
Okay.
I would expect it's comparable or potentially on the low side, just because, again, especially for some of the, higher cost cities around us. But I have to say, I'm not closely familiar with, their salaries and their benefits. So I'd have to review that. Our police and fire do both include some harbor spending. So in that way, they actually might have a little bit more than some other cities that don't support a harbor.
I see. I guess it might be helpful both to see it as a percent of the total expenditures and also on a per capita basis. I mean, I'm not saying that you should do this. I'm just saying if one is thinking about the comparability, that would be.
Oh, to look at as a percent. Are you saying percent of the total city budget and on a per capita?
Yeah.
I expect someone may have looked at this, especially for fire, because we've had studies on this the past few years, but that's a great
I've
point.
looked at it before, and we're on a higher side than others.
It looks a little high.
Yeah,
I mean, just
we're
for
definitely
the eyeball.
Yeah, it's higher than, I want to say, any city I've looked at.
It's higher, both, you mean just the dollar value is higher?
Not the dollar, what percentage we spend of our budget on police and on fire.
Yeah.
But again, our police and fire departments do include spending in the tidelands and uplands. We also have an emergency communications fund.
Right.
So we would want to maybe look at, general fund to general fund too.
I see.
Yeah.
But also, this is what the community wants.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of the ask of the community.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I have one slide for each department that just goes into a little more detail and that it breaks it down by category. I may not go into each one of these in detail unless anyone had a specific question, but I can just kind of flip through these. City attorney, city manager, IT, and you can see some departments have more categories than others, because they just have different types of expenses, and these tend to be the departments with either larger operations or more funding sources. So for police and fire, I guess I don't know that there's anything very interesting you can see. I'll just point out. Police and fire have this last item, 57, called POB debt. The reason this item appears in the police and fire department is, because they have enterprise funds. And those enterprise funds contribute towards the city's payment of our lease revenue bonds that refunded the pension debt. So those funds contribute in the same percentage of the pension liability belonging to that fund at the time that we issued the bonds.
What is the current personnel vacancy?
I mean, I'd have to run it. I don't know as of today's date. We did look at this when we were doing the budget, and it ranges usually on any given day from 7% to like 12, 15%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
you guys are in good shape then?
yeah,
terms
the
of
city,
having staff.
we've been better staffed, I think, the past year than we have been in many, many years, which
Yeah.
is wonderful for us in the city and also results in usually fewer salary savings because we tend to be higher staffed. So fire, the same thing. We have our debt payment here. And here's our waterfront, where you can tell the internal service charges here are very high compared to the remainder of the budget. It's actually quite a small budget for all the other items. And those are all my slides. So I think in summary, I think we're cautiously fine on revenue. We don't see anything really great, and I don't think we see any really strong cause for concern, and we will continue to monitor it.
No red flags. Do you have questions, suggestions, comments?
No.
Oh, you know what? I didn't mention it in the presentation, but I did also include for your reference our capital report through the same months of the year. So this is something that the commission had requested before, and it's just a report by project by fund. It shows all the projects that we have appropriated this year, all the new ones, with our spending to date.
Do we have a motion to accept and file the quarterly report?
Guess I second that motion. Is that
Motion.
the way you phrase it?
Oh, I asked
Motion to
if there's a
receive it. Yeah, motion to
motion.
receive and file.
Motion received,
and file.
and you-
See, this is the expert.
Yeah.
And then second.
And I second the
There you
motion.
go.
Yes.
All righty. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None. Motion carried. All right, now we can go to item J2.
We do need to ask for public participation as well.
Any comments before I was supposed to ask any comments? I never do that, right? We do have a public comment.
Yes. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
From my experience analyzing expenses, each year's quarter is different from the same quarter of the prior year. Each quarter should have its own budget to compare with actuals. Corporations do this when they report earnings. A company can know if they are on track with expectations for the current year or have to adjust to be able to meet annual budget. Does the city have a current year quarterly budget to compare to actuals? Comparing percents of expenditures for the current quarter with percent of expenditures for the prior year quarter, and assuming you are okay if the year's expenditures for the prior year are the same as last year's, is a less valid measure of being on track to meet your current budget plan. The city should have a current year quarterly budget to use for comparison with actual expenses. Other questions. The percent of total revenue received in the first quarter dropped from 13% in 2024 to 8% in 2026. Why? Was the drop expected? Will this be a problem? Between 23-24 and 25-26, the percent of total taxes received in the first quarter was exactly the same, 7%. But there was considerable variation within the categories. Property transfer tax is ahead of the prior years, but TOT is considerably behind, 16 to 23%. Business license tax, 21 versus 19%. Will those differences disappear over the rest of the year? Switching to expenses for this year versus last year. General fund, the equipment M&O, 40% versus 23%. Was the greater M&O spending a surprise? How will future quarters be affected? And all funds, capital outlay, 104% versus 10%, a huge difference. Why? The CIP, 28% versus 10%, another huge difference. Are projects ahead of schedule, or was there a surprise expense? Internal service, 34% versus 25%. Do these variances need to be explained? If measuring each quarter by its percent of the year's total, one might expect a mean revenue and overall spending rate of 25% per Chair Allen's statement that nothing changes for Q1, but the overall rate is only 8% for revenues and 16% for expenses. Considerable variance in spending rates per department with 16% or less for the police, fire, library, community services, treasurer, clerk, attorney, and mayor, while human resources and finance are over 37%. Without a budget for each quarter, how can the commission be assured and assure the council that the city is on track to meet the year's budget? Thank you.
Thank you. So what you just heard, are there any comments that we want to discuss? Do you want to look at any of the slides?
I think one comment he made, that was the same thing I had questioned, that the overall revenues were down 8% compared to 9% last year and 13% 2 years ago. So I think the suggestion for having a quarterly budget and then comparing the actual versus budget, I think that certainly makes sense.
Well, if I could ask you, could we just briefly look at the first slide again on the revenues, just to confirm what the comment was? And
I was not following when I heard we can ask him what it was, because I can't remember it, but I am curious.
well, it seems that taxes are 7% of the fiscal year received in first quarter, which is constant for the last, for 23, 24, 24, 25, 25, and 26. Non-tax revenue sources are significantly below where it was from last year and where it was from 23, 24, which is coming for the GF charges for services primarily. So that's the big outlier, right? And I think you had discussed, but if you could refresh our memory just briefly again, I think you had talked about this.
Sure, yes, this is the one item that we noted that is a real discrepancy from the prior year. And again, this I am about 99% certain is because we are behind on our revenue posting. So when the city receives revenue, it comes into the bank, but we need to, identify what it is and post it to our financial system. And we are catching up on that at the moment. And this particularly impacts our charges for services because we get those are largely credit card payments that are, again, were recorded in the bank, but we need to go through and identify them and post them appropriately. And I'll look back again at our 23-24 budget, but if you'll notice, the charges for service budget was also much larger in 23-24, which causes me to believe there was some additional item in there that we are not including moving forward. So again, there is a real difference between this year and the prior year at this point, but I strongly believe that is due to the need to post all our revenues.
So one thing that Jim mentioned is what I kind of was talking about when it's private sector versus public sector. And I was saying how it's much easier in public sector because, and exactly for what he said, in public sector, we don't do quarterly budgeting. I don't know, maybe, I don't know, is it something that you think will help?
It helps you understand if there's a seasonality effect, or was it planned to be at this level? Yeah. Or if you're budgeting TOT to grow because the hotels are going to open up or those types of things. then at least you have a better understanding of why it's lower. So
But
it could
that's
be helpful,
the-
but I don't.
Yeah, but that's the reason we usually compare it to the first quarter of the previous year, because that's,
Seasonality is consistent.
it's,
but
yeah, seasonality
unless
is
there's something that
consistent.
you're
That's how
giving
we
growth at
forecast,
TNT.
that's, yeah, that's why I say it's really easy in government, because that's, seasonality stays the same. Taxes come exactly
Because the
when they're
property tax
supposed to
gets
come.
collected
Yeah,
twice a
it's
year. So
December, it's
it hits those
December,
2 months.
January, April, May. It's every, sales tax is on a certain day. There are certain months that they're certain percentage above, but it's always the same. There isn't that much that's different in government. It's when they do budgets, they do it based on, most of the time, based on the previous year. And I've even seen when they started doing from zero, and it ends up being the same thing. Because we provide the same services, police doesn't change, right? A fire doesn't change, and that's where most of our money is.
That may be true from one quarter to the next, but if you compare this quarter with the similar quarter last year and 2 years ago, then the same
that's
logic
what she
that
did
applied this year will apply to the same quarter last year and the year before. So,
Oh, yeah, and that's exactly what she did.
and this is really very revealing, and I think if your CIP expenses are skyrocketing and the revenues are going the other way, I think that raises an alarm and something that we should be looking at, not just letting things go and
So
then
where
find out at the end of the year that we spent too much money on capital improvement projects.
If I can just say one thing about overspending the capital with the revenue, I mean, we have an established budget for the capital program, and we're spending within that budget. So the amount that we're able to spend on capital does not depend on the amount that we're able to bring in Q1, I guess is what I'm saying. So we are definitely always spending within budget on capital because we're not allowed to go over that budget.
And then the debt service funds, I'm looking at the expenditure, which is the next slide, I think.
So, and again, this is usually
That's the one
because
that
we
got in trouble for.
So we make, we have 2 debt service payments.
July, August, September. Okay. And then that's the one that will change. That's the one that won't necessarily track with the previous quarter, because I think that fluctuates how much.
Our debt service? So we have a different debt service schedule every year. So it will be slightly different from the prior year. And then we have 2 debt service payments. One is due in October and one is due in May.
Yeah.
So that's when you'll see, those payments.
All right, I think we already approved. Thank you, Stephanie. And we can move on to the next item, CIP projects. CIP projects reported by, okay, it's 8 o'clock. I will ask the commission if they want to save this item and the next item for next time, or would you like to continue? It's up to you.
We can do a quick review and then
Of the CIP?
maybe
Okay.
discuss it later.
Okay.
Since Stephanie has prepared it, we might as well take a look at
Okay.
it.
So can we open the CIP J2, the CIP report that was, that it's a big spreadsheet.
I can open it, sure. Let me find it.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to see this because all the big screen will show it. Would have been. Yeah, it's so, I don't know how you can see. So Jesse did a really good job, including if you go to column, I'm going to look, I love that they have 2 screens now. The comment section, so that's Q. So he gave really good explanations for each. And I was hoping that would probably answer some of your questions, Commissioner Jesse. No?
So, please repeat that.
So in column Q,
Comments right here.
Yeah.
It gives context
yeah.
onto how,
he gave
Projects
pretty,
evolve.
I think, good detailed summary of everything.
I think Stephanie has the comparison that I was talking about in my email to you.
So I prepared a little presentation that has responses. I will say that my responses primarily refer back to the spreadsheet because, as Chair Allen was saying, I think it does contain a lot of the information that you're looking for. So
this is what we have added, supplemental information?
well, this has always been in the spreadsheet, but what I was going to do is just kind of walk through your questions.
And can you refer
since you-
it back to this spreadsheet?
That is exactly what it
Because-
is, with
perfect.
screenshots.
Because I don't want to have so many different spreadsheets to look at.
It's not another spreadsheet. So, but it's great to have this up because it links back to here. And I wanted to do this. I don't know that I'm giving a lot of new information, but I did want to list it out in the hopes of being clear and, answering some of these questions. So Commissioner Yesta, your first question was just kind of to verify what you're seeing on this sheet, which, as you stated, the final appropriation is significantly larger than the initial appropriation, and that is correct. So I did verify your numbers, and that is absolutely correct. And your second question was you were looking for the number of additional appropriations for each budget. And again, as Chair Allen mentioned, the column Q, which we looked at, or F through Q, provide the sum of the additional appropriations. And then in this comment area, Jesse has provided a summary of what led to each of these, what led to the changes in each of these projects. And then you had also asked, which again I think is a very important question, if all the appropriations were approved by City Council, and if not, what was the process? So City Council approves every appropriation. So it's every appropriation, whether capital or operating. I cannot spend a single dollar above the council identified threshold, which is department and fund, without council approval. When staff makes changes using change order authority, which is essentially to spend over the bid amounts or the contract amounts, that is within budgeted amounts. So in no case do we spend past council approval.
Can you not show in the spreadsheet for each capital improvement project how much was added in each appropriation request and how much was spent?
So
It's there.
in the spreadsheet,
He even, I think Jesse, I don't want to give credit to the wrong person, but I think it was Jesse who even column Q, RSTUV, he even put links to the documents that were used.
yeah, so
That's just to go back and forth. I think it'll be much simpler if you just had under each project all the items listed there.
That's what Jesse has.
yeah, so I pulled up an example. So again,
I knew that was going to be confusing.
Yes.
When you brought in a presentation.
Oh.
If you do it directly
if you guys would like me to close the presentation, I will shut it down.
If you use the Excel file to show where it is so that Commissioner knows where to look for it, that's
Sure.
all I'm asking.
So column Q has the summary, and then as Chair Allen just said, these are actually links to each one of the council agenda items where this has gone to council and council has approved it. So the only thing that I did in my presentation here was to, here's the text, and then if you follow the links, you can see the contract award. And then the report that I think provides a lot of the information you're looking for is the notice of completion. And in this, you'll see, for example, from this text here, they discuss all of the change orders and the authority for the change orders. So again, I think the reason that Jesse and their analyst, whose name is Jessica, who is really wonderful, included these together, is that it's probably the most efficient way to gather the information in a way that you can get all the detail, because it will give you the text as well.
I really like what they did. It's easily, everything is right there, at your fingertips. If you want to know exactly what happened, I mean, this is a lot of work.
There's a lot of work put into this.
There's a lot of work put into it.
Yeah, this is more than I expected. So I really appreciate it. So if we learn how to navigate this Excel, I think you'll find all the questions, Commissioner Jesse, that you were asking. So all these, next to those comments, see those letters that are A, B, C, D, if you click on those, they all have the documents, like proof what they did.
So it will go to the actual, signed agreement or signed resolution or contract.
I really don't know what other information we could ask of them, because this to me is above and beyond what was given to us. What did they miss? I can't think of anything they missed. I mean, we can analyze it.
So the only other comment so I just wanted to address the remaining comments as well. I mean, one of the comments is, going back to the total cost versus the initial appropriation. I think Commissioner Sherbin discussed this earlier. The amount in our column F that we've included that you're comparing to the end total cost does not represent what the city imagines to be the total end cost. That is not what it represents. So, as Commissioner Sherbin said, this might be an exploratory phase, it might be an initial design phase, and then council will go back and potentially add to it. I think something that both Andy, the Public Works Director, and Jesse have discussed is, if we're really trying to get to, hey, is the city paying too much? Are we paying more than we anticipated? At least for construction projects, you can look at the engineer's estimate and the bids and look at, were we off in those estimations? But again, the city staff is not able to spend outside of council authorization. So in those cases, we would need to go back to council for approval. I did an example. This may be overkill, so I could leave this to you, but this is very similar to Commissioner Sherbin's example earlier. Council requests a project, for example, painting the Harbor Gateway. Staff has an estimate for that cost. Council appropriates funding for it. The city completes the work. The next year, council says, hey, that was a great project. We'd like to add we'd like to add scope. Here's some additional funding. So if you're looking at the initial appropriation and the end funding, you're going to say, why did the city spend twice as much? But what has happened is that we've completed the project as directed with the budget appropriated. And then finally, just on data and transparency, I think the mayor agreed with you in your letter regarding the capital improvement program, regarding CIP presentation. I think, he agrees and the city manager agrees that there's some improvement in how we can present those projects. And the city manager has asked us to work on that. And then just regarding transparency, council does approve every single appropriation. They make, all of these are done in open session or, throughout the year, and they are publicly available on the website. So I completely appreciate the challenges in figuring out where the information can best, where you can best pull the information. I think this is why this spreadsheet is very, very helpful. But I do want to emphasize that all of these decisions are in public. And I was talking to the Public Works Director earlier today. He mentioned that you know, a great place to hear about the CIP planning is the budget council meeting when the council members are discussing the capital budget. So they have a whole public hearing devoted to the capital budget. They ask very detailed questions, and that's where they're kind of talking to management about that. I think that may be all the slides I had. I just wanted to make sure we respond to the questions and that we include the group as well.
In terms of staff giving us information that we've been asking for a very long time, I think this gives us everything we've asked. I can't think of what is it that you think is missing.
Unless we look at each and every
That's what we
item,
asked.
it's going to take a lot of homework to figure out, what to say.
That's what you asked
Yeah,
for.
I know.
And they gave it to us.
Yeah.
So if you want to pick a project, I was like, for myself, I was like, oh, I'm curious about this project.
Yeah,
And
that's
then you
what
go and start digging, or if you see a big number that it was increased, you can look at it and they have all that information in one spot.
Yeah, because the city's never going to approve a $56 million budget on a project sight unseen. They're going to do it in phases. What is the planning phase, the design phase?
Yeah.
And so that's why what can look like $1 million approval can escalate very quickly over time.
And this spreadsheet has all that.
Yeah, the history behind it, which
Yeah,
is, I think,
it has all the,
I think
he did.
maybe Commissioner Jesty would like just to take a line item and lay it out, how you would like to see it presented. Because the detail is there, and I think if you just take one line item and
There's no
graphically,
better way to
I think we're talking about how graphically to display the information that's there and make a recommendation. Let's consider that.
And the other thing to remember is that this is something we have been doing for a year, 50 years, maybe 40 years. So I don't accept the claim that initially it's just a very small amount and then it grows because nobody knows upfront what the total is going to be. That doesn't really happen in any corporation, in any business. They have to, initially they are going to ask you, how much do you estimate is going to cost for this particular project, what the total cost will be? You have to have some idea. When you start with $30,000 and end up with $2 billion, you have to have some idea up front what the total cost is going to be based on what you have learned in the last 50 years. So that analytics is available to the planners and the city manager, not to us.
I still think they talk about it from a high level, what they anticipate.
Yeah, but
they're not looking for approvals.
That should be upfront, that this project, even though our initial request is just for the estimate and for whatever engineering work has to be done, that's a very small amount. But if you are going to end up spending 5 times as much, you have to have some idea up front, how much is it going to be? You don't build a house with only, say, $100,000 and then end up spending $2 billion to build it. That is what bothers me. That you got to have some idea, and the people who have spent their lives, spent so many years, you have the artificial intelligence, you can do that analysis and that estimate up front, present that, and then track the progress of the project. So I don't buy this explanation that initially we just don't know how much it is going to cost.
Well, I think a useful exercise could be you can take the spreadsheet and compare the engineer's estimate to the total spending. And that gap tells you, how far they deviated from what they had thought. You can't use the initial appropriated amount. That's not the number. It's the engineer's estimate. And you're right, that there are cases where the estimate, like the rechannelization of a lane on PCH, the initial estimate was $250,000, and the total projected spending turned out to be $730,000. So there are cases where there are big differences, but it takes some work. Now, just quickly, you could use ChatGPT to map to get the text from the contracts and the council meetings to come up with why this goes on, because the data is all there now. But that would be a useful exercise.
Well, I think also, though, if this ties out the way that Stephanie's indicated that it does, then by looking at the change notices, what you should find a complete reconciliation between what the change notices were for and how that final cost got increased. So if you've got a project and you've got a change notice, then what does that change notice reflect? Does it reflect a bad estimate, or does it reflect the fact that the project itself now is including more or different kinds of items? That's all. But you really take the engineering estimate or the final bid cost, take a look at your change notices, and add your change, each particular change notice, you can see what the detail is, and actually watch this project. If it's changing in scope, you can actually watch the scope changing.
It's a mini project within a project.
I'm sorry?
It's a mini project within a project.
So we can pick one of these right now, and then we can, just one of those, not all 100. And then let's see what happened.
Well,
You've got the story there.
Well, I wouldn't think I don't think that's a helpful use of time. I think if we think that if we think that we should do like a forensic analysis of if there's an issue with the funding, then we do have the technology now, right? So you can take the spreadsheet, you can get the engineer's estimate, you can then load the documents into ChatGPT and tell it, I'd like to understand, in these documents, what did they say was the reason why they have to change? And then it would give you back out the data, and then you could see if there are common themes that begin to emerge, like some projects, if they dig a hole, they didn't know that it was going to be bedrock and they have to spend a lot more. So then you might go back and say the engineer is often wrong in these cases. And then you might want to peel the onion back further and ask why he's often wrong in these cases. And it might be that there's a good reason, that there's no way without drilling the hole to understand that. That's one possibility. One thing could show up is it might be that for only certain companies are there big change estimates. And then that's a more interesting exercise to understand why for company X, they always underbid and then come back and then change. And that would be, I think, a useful thing. If we did find that, for these 10 companies, they inevitably come back and tell you that the exercise, that the bids were off by 50%, and they have to come back and get more funding, then the council at that point have to give the funding because the hole is already dug. That would be fascinating, right? Then it would inform the council the next time there's a bid, this company we need to be mindful of. And that's doable. With a research assistant, it would take you no more than 1 day to sort of, maybe 2 days to hunt that down with the technology we have now. So I think that's a useful thing to do. I'm not sure that we would gain a whole lot by just clicking at the spur of the moment right now.
That's exactly what I was driving at, that with the AI tools we have,
you could feed it in
do the analysis and show where there are some areas that are way too out of proportion. Again, going back to the project to build a house, you buy a piece of land and then you get the architect to give you the design, and the contractor will tell you how much it's going to cost, the whole thing. And then, of course, he will spend money for each phase, but he's not going to come to you for approval for every single thing unless your specs change a lot.
So if you have
I think that's what happens. A lot of times the specs change. Of course. That's what happens. That's what I've seen in public works. When I was in public works, that's what I saw, that specs changed. You start digging a hole and then something else comes up that you weren't expecting. A pipe, you're trying to replace a pipe and then something,
I understand, I understand, but this is something we have been doing it for a long time. And if you look at the history from that, you have some idea. Of course, there will be some
So you're saying you should
unanticipated.
expect that if you're
just don't-
replacing a pipe,
that's-
something else is going to be wrong.
So that's testable. So if you have a smart high school student, like the really smart, a really, really smart one, if you get that person to come, they can do this, right? With ChatGPT now, they could hunt it down and tell you, what's
Yeah,
it-
they've got,
Do you know
they've
an
got, the-
available student?
I'm sorry?
Do you have an available student?
I don't have an available student, but I think somebody at the high, I know people at the high school. I'm sure there's one or two people that can do this. As it would be a great public service and
Give them an extra credit. Send them
yeah.
this and give them an extra credit.
I guess I'm missing the point a little bit on this because I think the change notices specifically tell you what the change in the project is. You don't need any AI. It's right
So
there.
it gives you insights and trends on what's going
The
on.
only
That's all you
wrinkle,
need.
so the only wrinkle is you want to see whether certain companies systematically come back. with
Totally
change
agree. As a second step.
If you find
absolutely.
that's interesting.
Absolutely.
Right.
I
Then
totally
the
agree.
council
with
would
you.
love to know that.
But to get to that first step,
yeah.
when you're saying, how did this $300,000 project end up into a $4 million project? If you read the change notices, you will find out exactly how
Right
that
now, we
happened.
can do that in a few minutes.
Yeah, but,
Well, I'm
it's
just
there,
saying,
right?
it's there.
It's there. So
It wouldn't take 2 days. You can do it in
the
15
deeper
minutes,
question is
probably.
why. That's the deeper question.
I
Is
totally
why.
agree.
And that's why you need a high school student to come and create a data set of all the companies and then see which are the ones that systematically come back, that go over budget.
Once you get some correlation between
Exactly.
cost increases and
Exactly.
reasons,
Exactly.
coding it by reason code,
Yeah.
do your correlations, then you can
Precisely.
take that
Yeah.
step.
Then you come back to the council and you say, these 5 companies, there's a correlation of like 0.9, they always come back and ask for more. And the question is, if the bidding is randomly assigned, then there's a big problem with these companies, right? But if these companies systematically pick the more complex cases, it's still not clear that there's a problem. It's only if, I don't want to go too far into the weeds, but you get the point. If you're interested, you can get a high school student and spend a couple of days, and I think you'll find some cool stuff. And the council would love to know.
Well, unless you're using your students, we don't have a.
I don't have the
And
bandwidth.
I cannot
I don't
ask,
have the bandwidth.
right now,
to-
I don't think it's reasonable for us
Yeah.
to ask staff.
Yeah, it's
I don't-
unreasonable to ask.
I don't think,
Yeah.
that's, especially it's something, I'm looking at one of the attachments, and this is for the Anita PCH, the very first project. And it says, after award, staff saw opportunity for additional improvements to the median island to replace decades
Exactly.
old color concrete. So it's.
So that's a benign change.
Yeah, it's
right?
and
There's
it's $104,000.
Yeah.
The reason we ask this from staff is so that there's transparency. And they provided us that transparency. So now if we really want to go and look to see what it is, it's right here.
Yeah.
I think staff has given us exactly what they were supposed to give us. I don't.
No question.
If you want to see it, it's right there. Open it up and see what happened to it. And if you disagree what happened, if you have an issue with that project, then that's an item we can bring to the agenda. But give me an example that something happened that you disagree with. Otherwise.
We have the data, we don't have the analytical tools. Without the analysis, we really cannot tell how good the data is.
Well, you can analyze. Why don't you take one and analyze it? It will take you less than 10 minutes to do it, just to scan through those documents.
Well, I take that point, but I think in the interest of time, if you have a copy of the spreadsheet, I think it's
We all have it.
useful in private time
Right.
to
Yeah.
do it and
Yeah,
see.
and if you see something you don't like, sometimes I do stuff. I go and dig things, and if I don't like it, I bring it and and complain about it.
And ChatGPT will help you if you get the. I mean, it'll be great because you have to read the text. You can give it guidelines as to what to look for in this text, and so it's a great exercise.
Pick one project a day. You don't have to. You don't have to do. Whether you're using ChatGPT or something else. Take one a day and see if there is something they did that you disagree with, or not just disagree with, that you have a recommendation that they can do better.
Yeah, and some code words could be like read the change order and look for a word like unexpected. Right, that's that's a sign that something occurred.
Do you work for AI?
No, it's my job. But those are some of the things. But I don't have the bandwidth.
Do we have a volunteer? It sounds like we have a volunteer.
Volunteering. I see you volunteering.
But that's the way that one would begin to look. If you suspect that something is not completely kosher, that's the way you would begin to look at this. Is like look for keywords that you think would trigger, why was this unexpected, right? And
Finding patterns of
exactly,
behavior,
and find patterns, yeah. And that would be the way to
we're not talking about a lot of projects here. I mean, we're talking about maybe 20? 20, 30? This isn't.
26, I think. Though.
No,
Yeah,
I don't know how I estimated, but yeah, that's, I mean, even if you do it manually, that's my point is, even if you do it manually,
because you have to
it's
read
not.
the change orders, but yeah.
You don't have to read word by word. You can look for, it's, I mean, it took me a minute to find the reason why the first one, it literally took me a minute. Because this document is
So
created
well
in
put
such
Yeah,
together.
it's an excellent document. So,
There's, I cannot ask anything more of staff at this point. I think we were asking transparency, they provided us more transparency. Anything else before I ask for public comments? And then we can discuss after public comments too, if he gives us any idea. Do we have any public comments, please?
Yes, we do. One public comment and then no e-comments or Zoom attendees.
Thank you.
Hi, again. I have a background in government contract, construction contract, procurement, and contract administration. I can tell you there are certain patterns you look for. You look for bidders that constantly bid on contracts that are change order. You want to look at the total rate of change orders over all your contracts, not just this year's, but to see and compare it with other cities' rates of change orders and see if you have a particular problem. You want to look for people, if you use consulting engineers to design projects, you want to look for evidence of collusion between the bidders and the consulting engineers, which would be, again, comparing the original project estimate with the final cost. There are a number of ways that you can find this out. I think 1 year's data is too little.
Yeah.
You need to go through several years' data to find a pattern. And that's what you're looking for, is the pattern of collusion, pattern of underbidding, pattern of excess change orders. And then you can start looking at the detail, and you can see whether these change orders were justified or not. And, once you find out what the problem is, then you can start to attack it. But I tell you, there are big bucks associated with construction in this city and all over. And it's worth a good deal of time to investigate it to the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Better, yeah.
I think now I'm probably understanding what you're trying to do. You want an audit. So we need to hire someone to do an audit. This can't be, what you're looking for, I don't think the department should audit their own work, but it should come from a third-party audit. So if that's what you're recommending, now I'm understanding what he's recommending.
That's what
Thank
you're
you.
saying,
See, this is why we have public comments. But now it clicks what you are trying to do.
That's how we get $300 hammer that Pentagon buys. That's how we get $60,000 to paint sign for the Redondo Pier. And those items, they stick out, and unless you do some kind of analysis and comparison. And to Jim's point, how many contractors are issuing change orders and how much more are they jacking up? It's like you hire a contractor based on the lowest bid, and then he starts adding all these changes. Pretty soon, it's way out of the ballpark. That needs to be tracked, and that needs to be compared with the data from the previous 5-10 years, allowing for inflation.
Okay, now I understand where you're headed
This
with this.
doesn't give me that, and I can't.
Gives you a start.
This
right?
gives
This
us
gives you the first year of
transparency,
data.
yeah.
And
But
then-
now I understand what you're trying to achieve. You're looking for an auditor to come and take a professional look at this.
AI can do a lot of it, as Commissioner Ramcharan said.
So is that a motion
AI
you would
is
like
perfectly
to?
capable of doing many things, and we're not taking advantage of it.
Okay, so what motion would you like to?
I don't know how to phrase it.
Like
but
to get a smart high school student to become a senior.
It'll be a good project for them, no doubt.
AP Calculus and AP Stats.
Well, let's start with the motion and then we'll chip in. So what, because this is, your baby, I want you to start wording it and then we'll
Let me
chip
give
in.
it some thought. I will take a look at
Okay.
one or two projects and go into all those details and do my best to come up with my own assessment.
Okay,
And I won't call it audit. This is going to be based on what I've done in the past. And then we can go from there. We cannot simply make a decision on the spot right now and say, we want audit. They'll say, okay, what do you want the auditor to do? We don't know yet.
okay. Well, it's been on the agenda for a while. The spreadsheet has been with us for a while, so if you want, so we're going to bring this back, and next time, the purpose of it for bringing back is so that we make a motion exactly what we're going to do. It's either getting a recommendation to get an auditor, or, thank you, we're closing the vote.
Yeah, I think based on our commissioner's analysis, we can come up with a plan of what a next step should be based on what he comes up with on the 2 or 3. So why don't we make that kind of your...
I can only give you observations, not analysis as such, because that will be very time consuming for me.
Okay,
No,
well, I think
it would
we're...
be more, again, the recommendation of what the next phase or the next approach is,
Yeah.
or a recommendation to the city council saying
It's a good
that you
starting
should hire an
point.
auditor to dig into this
There you
because
go.
we think there's savings there, whatever it is based on your findings or
It's a good starting point. Stephanie has done a tremendous job of giving us all the data, but it is still hidden under the A, B, C, and all those letters.
Yes.
And somebody has to really dig into
Yeah,
it.
and I just did that in a minute because it's right there. It's at your fingertips.
But that's only for that one particular
Yes,
project.
and there's only 30-some projects or 26 projects.
But as Commissioner Ramcharan
So,
said,
and if you want to go back 10 years, then we do need to hire an auditor.
I've done this for 30 years, and I know exactly
Yes,
where...
I agree with you. I'm not arguing with you at all. I agree with you. I'm just looking for a motion right now, what to do with this, or next time, if we keep bringing this back and we talk about it over the same thing over, no, I don't want to do that.
Well, let's just bring it back and let Justy go ahead and do an analysis of 1 or 2 projects, see if he sees something that warrants us digging deeper into it, and then we can bring it up next meeting.
I
All
think
right.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
all right. So motion to what he said. That was the motion. And who's going to second?
I'll say, oh,
Okay, you were the first, all righty. All in favor? Aye.
aye.
All opposed? None. Motion carried. So we will bring this back and we'll move on after it being analyzed. All right, next. Again, it's 8:40. It's up to the commissioners if we want to skip J3 or not for tonight. And then we'll bring it back next time.
fine carrying it over.
You want to
Let's
carry it
carry it
over?
Yeah,
Okay, motion
Motion
to,
to carry J3 to next month's meeting.
I second that motion.
all in favor? Aye. All opposed, none. Motion carried, so we'll bring this back next time. So both J2 and J3 are coming back. J4, Stephanie, do you have, I did not check the dates?
Yes, so
Can you guys put that on the screen, please?
it is on the
So
screen.
J4 is in April. Our April's meeting was initially scheduled for the second Wednesday, no, second, whatever, Thursday.
Second Thursday, I can find it.
And so what I'm asking
April 9th.
is if we can move it to any of these dates, because that's spring vacation, and for those of us who have children, we won't be here, and we were asking the commission if it is okay for us to move that meeting.
Just a quick question. Do we know if we'll have a quorum, if the folks that are not going to be here? aren't
Regardless
gonna
of
be
a
here?
quorum, we just want to have an opportunity. If you can vote no, but regardless of quorum, this is for those of us who have children, have an opportunity to attend
Well,
April.
here's my question. Why do we need to break with the current policy that we have meetings that are scheduled on particular days and that those meetings take place unless we don't have a quorum? So what's the reason that we're making a change in that?
Because we can ask to move, and therefore I am asking to move the meeting.
And a question, I guess, arises with respect to how that dislocates your video engineer. The public needs to be informed. There are a number of different things, and all of the other commissioners also have to try to understand a schedule change or accommodate a schedule change.
This item has been on schedule this is the second time it's been on schedule. If somebody doesn't want to vote, they have an opinion, then they vote no. It's a simple vote, and it has to pass by majority. If majority doesn't vote yes, then it doesn't pass. The dates have already been checked.
Well,
Stephanie
here's
has
my
been kind
question.
enough to check the dates to make sure it counts.
Has the commission agreed to make a change at all or consider even making a change rather than selecting dates that are here? I mean, what's promoted the reason for a change in the date at all? And has anybody agreed to that?
So we have parents on this.
I understand.
That's what it is.
Okay, so this.
I'm not the only parent
There's
here.
three of us would potentially miss that meeting.
Okay, no, that's an important issue.
I'm not sure about you, but
Yeah,
I would be
it
likely
though,
missing
yeah.
it.
And then he
Absolutely.
also has children, the Turin.
Absolutely.
Turner.
So that's why we're asking.
that
So
was
again,
my
Oh, you thought it was just
No,
me? No,
I was just trying to understand the reason for the
I
change.
said like a few times, it's
Okay.
for parents who,
Well,
we're not.
I understand that. And tonight I found out that there are four
Yeah, for parents here.
people that have children, so that makes perfect sense.
So Stephanie was nice enough to put this for us together, and so both she and I actually checked to make sure these dates are available. The council chambers is available. I'm looking at our schedule. I know this was already in a calendar. We can, the 5th, we can, I guess, eliminate, are there any dates that you cannot do, you don't want? Or are all these dates work? Because I'm looking at my calendar and I can make any of these dates.
I can make all of mine work as well.
Yeah, it's all fine. I mean,
All fine?
all fine. I would guess the only thing is like the 15th is tax day, so you might be tired from doing that, but it's all fine. I'm flexible. So, yeah.
I'm fine any of the days.
Okay.
Any of the days? Okay, does anybody want to?
Sure, Justy is-
Justy, do you have a preference for any of these days? I mean, you can always, again, you can vote
I don't
no,
have
you don't. You don't have to vote yes. Well, I'll ask staff. Stephanie, do you have any preference? Which dates works best for you?
I don't have a strong preference. Thursday would probably be the easiest, just because the meetings are
Thursday's
always on a Thursday.
Thursday.
So it
Perfect.
keeps the same schedule.
Okay,
Let's do that.
Let's do Thursday.
Yeah.
Let's
Anybody
vote,
wants to
yeah.
move?
Move to change our April meeting to Thursday, April 23rd.
And I second that.
All in favor, aye.
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 All opposed? I'm waiting. All opposed?
No, you misunderstood. I'm totally for this,
Motion carries.
given the circumstances.
Oh, did I need to make a public comments? Do
Yes. And
you have public comment?
Are you available?
and we don't have any e-comments or Zoom attendees.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. Budget finance meeting, all right. And so same time, 6:30.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Visibility, thank you. Free, default, private, all right, and it's in my calendar. Item J5, nominations of election of chairperson and vice chair. So today we have to elect the next chairperson. We are missing 2 members. I think somebody wanted to be the next chair, but he's not here, and I would like people to be here when we're doing this, especially if we're going to nominate them.
Well, I'd like to nominate Jerry Woodham. I know he's not here, but he couldn't be here tonight, but knows that I plan to nominate him. And he would be pleased to serve if elected. And I think that Jerry brings some special blend of talent to our commission. He's a stickler for transparency and an expert in public finance. And I know he's a good parliamentarian. Thank you. So I'd like to nominate Jerry Woodham for chairperson.
I'd like to nominate Chair Allen so she can continue in that position for 1 more year.
So then how do we do this? Do we vote on the 2 different people proposed, or I don't know what the policy or procedure?
I believe, I don't know if you can correct me, I believe so. I mean, I think we'd wait to see if there are any other nominations. But yes, otherwise I believe you nominate and then you vote. I will just say, we have shared that the election is supposed to happen in October or as soon as possible after that. That said, if the whole commission feels that, you'd prefer to have a meeting where the whole commission is present,
That would definitely be the preference, but again,
I
is there a way
don't
to
That's what
guarantee?
we did last
I
time.
don't
That's
think
why
that
we
would-
delayed it.
But is it possible to guarantee that everyone's going to be here in December? My only concern is I don't want to continue to punt
Because
it down
last
the
time
road.
we
Yeah, yeah,
delayed for that
For this one,
reason.
yeah,
Now
yeah. You're
today,
absolutely right.
he's still not here, and I personally don't want to vote for someone who's not here because I want to make sure they're here and they're saying they're okay and they're accepting. So it's up to the
Understand.
commission. It's
I
up to the
agree. I
commission.
think we need to have the candidate here before we decide to vote for anyone.
Yeah, I think just having a fuller commission, regardless of anything else, I think would be a benefit. So if there's,
Do we have that flexibility? Or I
That's
know,
what-
I know that's not the preference.
I am not the city clerk, but
How
again,
long
I
can we do
reread the handbook today, and it does say October or as soon as possible.
Okay.
So we already delayed once.
We already delayed once.
And then there's no guarantee it's December if we're going to have all 7 people here, because it is December next
And you just- I
time.
mean, yeah.
And,
You just never
I
know.
mean, it's
Someone
a
gets sick,
holiday.
things come up. You never know.
Yeah.
So I'm open to moving it to next month.
Yeah,
But
I'm flexible as well.
Okay.
I'm flexible too, either way, either move it or.
I don't think any punishment will come down.
Okay.
I think
So
it's
let's-
possible the
So
city clerk
how
tells me
many
I'm wrong.
people do we want minimum to, is it going to be same?
As long as we have a quorum, I think, or I think
have
maybe we
quorum.
agree that when everyone's here, like, we'll move it one more time, but
Yeah,
December we make a decision.
that's,
Okay.
If we're all in kind of
Perfect.
So no matter what happens, December is,
Is our
that's,
date.
okay.
We make a decision,
So,
assuming we have a quorum.
okay,
and
so
the
that
meeting
was the
happens.
motion.
Yeah,
So he made a motion to move to December, but December has to be the last
yeah, with the understanding is that
month
we're going to
to make a
vote.
decision. Then, anyone second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Motion carried. So we're also taking item J5 to next time. J6, pension questions to address in future presentation. We just added this here. We knew we weren't going to have time. Is it okay if we move to next time? Motion?
I would also say, if anyone has some burning questions they would like us to address in our pension presentation, I think you're free to just email them to me. I don't know that the group needs to agree on those unless you would like to do that. So potentially, if we just want to send those to me, I can pull them together, share them with the group, and then include those if
Yeah, you
if
can
that sounds
always
good to the
ask
commission.
questions.
Yep,
You're not,
exactly.
Is there any update around timing of them actually giving us a presentation? 'Cause that's a
There,
whole
there
other-
is not. I will reach out to them again. You know, traditionally, we've had this in December.
Yeah.
As I reported, they have told me this is a courtesy they extend once a year. So we'll look at December. However, we do have a fairly full meeting for December because we will have the treasurer's quarterly report that we postponed from this meeting. We will have my year-end report that we also postponed from this
so
meeting.
we're going to discuss all that in item K.
I'm sorry?
We're not on item K yet.
But she's saying that we may
Sure,
not,
I'm
we may
just
not want the
sorry.
pension, she's trying to say that we may
I'm
not want the
talking
pension
through the
meeting in
pension.
December, because
Okay.
we've already stacked
Yeah.
our calendar for December.
Okay,
So
so
it-
for now, let's move this to next time, and then in K, let's discuss the schedule for the next,
Sure, I was
for
just
December.
discussing the pension.
Do we have a motion to move pension questions to address in future presentation to the December agenda, please?
I propose.
Anybody else wants to discuss in December? And we can always move it
Or do
if
we
it
just want to
December
just
is.
send questions
Or you
to
can just
Stephanie? Do we
email
need
me.
to discuss it? I guess would be my question.
This is an item I
This-
put on the
This
agenda.
one came from you, I think, last time, so it's up to you.
I think this actually came from me.
Okay.
I won't, did it come from you?
It could have come from me.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I think,
Because when I checked back my notes, it
Oh.
was from,
I think we
yeah.
were all kind of going around like about
Okay.
what should we ask or what, and
Yeah.
then we said,
Yep.
let's review it and come
Yep.
back.
Yep,
But if it's easier, I think it might be, rather than taking the time and putting it on as
Mm-hmm.
an item, it might just be easier that any specific questions we have, we all just
Okay.
basically send to Stephanie.
okay, all righty.
I don't think it
So
needs to be carried over.
we will not bring this back in December.
Correct.
And then we'll discuss in December when we want to talk. All right. And you already made a motion? Did anyone?
Or
make a
motion to close this, or any e-comments, or
We don't have any e-comments or attendees on Zoom.
Thank you.
a motion to close this item?
Any second?
Yes.
Your second?
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All not in favor? Motion carried. And all righty, so for K, what are we bringing back in December? That must bring back, it's the CIP projects. It's the professional services procurement, nomination and election of chairperson. And then there is a quarterly treasurer's report. Anything else?
Well, I'll also have our 24-25 year end.
Okay, that's too much. 24, 25 year end. No, I mean, that's great.
that's great, yeah.
That's a priority. So
do we
so
wanna
I want to
move-
make sure we prioritize. So to me, the 24, 25 year end, that's a priority.
Yeah, and the treasurer's report, I think, are both.
Um,
So do we want to take any of like J2 or J3 and move that to January?
Just a quick
Commissioner
question
Jesse's
of
gonna get
Stephanie.
mad.
When does the treasurer make his report to the city council?
So he'll submit it to the city council on actually the next week's meeting. So normally he would have presented this week. However, we had a couple, it wasn't great timing for him, and with our specific agenda, it wasn't great timing for us. So we're going to put it on the next agenda. It will go to council as usual, because his reports go to council out on the 18th, but he'll present it in detail to the.
And any inputs that we would want to make that result from his presentation aren't really timely. And so when we set the date for, pardon me, for his presentation isn't as imperative as it is now.
That was because we have priorities.
Yeah, no, understand.
So the budget stuff that
But
we're talking about.
I'm just trying to identify something that we could push back even further. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes.
That's all I'm
Yes.
saying.
Okay. I would agree with you. If there is, can we push that back to January, the treasurer's report? And then maybe they can do the 2 quarters together? Because in January and then February, they have the next quarter, probably. But can we then pencil in for January?
We've got to push something.
Because
So if it's
they
not
don't-
that,
they don't-
what else is going to be?
I missed it. They don't present to council.
They do not. So
they do not.
he prepares the same report, but he just submits to council. It's not a presentation.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Misunderstood.
So they don't need us to approve anything before they submit, yeah. So is that okay that we push that to January and so we can finish up the other?
Sure.
Yes, all right, motion to only have, so priority-wise will be fiscal year 2024-25 report by Stephanie, and then CIPs, and then professionals, and then nominations, and then the treasury will be in January. And all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any public comments? Any comments?
I just have one quick question before I vote on that. If, would we be better off pushing the professional service procurement to January and having the treasurer's report?
Because Stephanie's going to do the fiscal year 24-25, that's a big presentation on its own.
Oh, okay.
That's why. That's because that's going to be like the big item for next time. It is, right? It's a big deal.
That's not small.
No, it is.
Big deal item.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably the biggest deal of the year.
Gotcha.
Or second, maybe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, none. Motion carried. Adjournment, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carried, 8:57, end of meeting. Adjourned.
Thank you.